All right, DFK, we had a big week in week 10, and I know that you aren't totally privy to everything that went on because Sunday you were driving from Kansas to Texas. So I'll help you through this. I'll give you some of the latest, and let's do this. Welcome to the Dynasty Stock Market with bigz and DFK. I am bigz. He is DFK. And we're here with the latest in Week 10 NFL news, previewing Week 11. We've got stocks up, stocks down. We've got what's going on in the world of the NFL. And if you check out the thumbnail real quick, you'll see a couple of the storylines. Mainly, Trey Lance has arrived. We'll get DFK's Dallas Cowboys insider knowledge on that one. Audric Estime, at least for the time being, took over the backfield in Denver, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling had himself a career resurrection at the arm of Derek Carr as the Saints ended their skid, and so dynasty stocks are moving. And we're at week 10. We're getting into week 11. Pretty much you have a good read on, I mean, there's 2 or 3 weeks left until the playoffs start. Most playoffs start in week 14. You pretty much know where your team is at. And so we'll talk about, we'll do some Q&A, whether you need to start moving off guys, start making trades, grabbing those picks. Picks are a little bit more valuable now, or a little bit harder to come by than they were 4 weeks ago, because people are everybody's looking for picks now. Instead of just you, it's now 4 teams. So let's talk about all that. Speaking of driving down from Kansas, how was your weekend?
Yeah, it was great. Did an early Thanksgiving with the fam and a lot of people. So getting that, holiday sickness a little bit earlier. So excuse me if I'm a little bit under the weather, but we had a great time. All the little kids getting to see each other and all that. They're big into the Chiefs, obviously. And even the Jayhawks had an upset at the Chiefs field. And we were joking that they probably ruined the stadium because the Chiefs had to play there the very next day. But it's probably awesome as a college kid to get to play at the Chiefs Stadium. So, yeah, it was a good week for all the Kansas sports. It seemed like pretty much everybody won.
Now, for those of you who are interested in what's happening, maybe you play some Devy. There was, in that Kansas game, there was a quarterback who's my favorite player in college football right now. Well, besides Jaden Ott, the running back from Cal.
Was it Jalen Daniels, right?
No. I like Evan Neal, the Kansas running back. I think he's highly underrated. I feel like he's kind of he's in that 4th round NFL draft pick category, but somebody who there's a possibility that next year he's gonna produce right away. No, the guy I'm talking about is class of 2026, and that's the Iowa State quarterback Rocco Becht. I've been on that kid since about halfway into his freshman season last year. He had his big breakout game in the bowl game. Believe it was Iowa State against Memphis, and he absolutely lit Memphis up. He's the son of former NFL tight end Anthony Becht. And I mean, when you have a kid who he's in the same system that produced Brock Purdy, and he has a freshman year breakout, he's a guy that you want to keep your eye on. So he's still got next year is going to be his junior year. But you see certain quarterbacks like Penix and Nix last year, Jaden Daniels to a certain extent. They need that 5-6 years of seasoning. Rocco Becht is immediate. He's going to be a 3-year guy and then enter the NFL, kind of like a JJ McCarthy. The dude's arm talent is off the charts. I had a discussion at the Fantasy Football Expo with NBC guy Chris Froton, who's a huge NCAA and Devy guy, and I said, why is Rocco Becht the most exciting prospect in college football right now? Or no, who's the best prospect in college football right now, and why is it Rocco Becht? And he went, oh my god! I mean, we were drinking. He's totally on Rocco Becht.
Yeah, if you wanted to share his stats, I got him on screen share if you'd like.
Go for it. Okay.
Yeah.
From the game.
So even though they lost, still 380 plus yards, not bad.
Yeah, and Jalen Noel is good too. Devin Neal is good. Jalen Noel is good. Carson Hansen, look at that, 8 carries and a touchdown, leading. So you could tell that Iowa State was just chucking it. Rocco Becht, yeah, right. I love that guy.
Sweet.
All right, so let's get your Marquez Valdez Scantling take. What do you? You're a contender. There is no Chris Olave. Marquez Valdez Scantling lit it up with Derek Carr. What are you paying for MVS right now?
Well, I'm in a couple super deep flex leagues, mini flexes. Man, it couldn't be. I don't know, man. It had to be. It had to be the 5th range. It's just so hard, man, because we've seen it come and go. We know next week it's not going to happen. So, sorry guys, I'm not trading for him. I'm out.
I stumped you. All right, let's look.
Go
ahead.
Only 3 catches. It's just like it's not going to happen again. But
oh my god,
yeah.
I just got a trade offer. I get Rico Dowdle. He gets Blake Corum. No, thank you.
Yeah, no way. Sorry, guys.
Trade all Cowboys. Had some run.
You gotta wait for Corum. Like as soon as Corum gets to start, then you trade.
Right, but he got some run last night, and that was good to see. We
need
all right, more so MVS 25.9 points, wide receiver 2 finish for the week. 3 catches, 2 touchdowns. So that's not sustainable. He's actually gotten targets in almost every game that he's played. There was one that he didn't even play. He had 0% snaps. Every game that he's gotten a snap, he's gotten a target. This was by far his best game. But they have a good matchup against Cleveland. Then they have a bye on the Rams. Week 14, starting in the playoffs, they get the Giants in Washington, who are good. They're a good matchup. Then Green Bay, and then for the week 17, they have the Raiders, which is a terrible, terrible matchup. So, yeah, I'm not doing much for MVS unless you're super, super desperate. If you're a contender, you probably don't have any need for him. And we just wasted 10 minutes of your time. So you're welcome. Yeah. All right. We got some comments. Aaron Bigler, Rock Chalk. Yeah, get some of that Kansas action and sell high on MVS. I agree. If you got somebody who's offering you more than a cup of coffee for I always do that, Marquez Valdez Scantling, then go get it. In the immortal words of our fearless leader, Matthew Kelly, go get it.
Yeah, that was a trick question. I'm not trading for him.
All right, let's talk about Audric Estime then. So, especially rookies, especially guys who, I mean, there were some people who, Audric Estime is not going to do crap in the NFL. I have always liked him. He and Braylon Allen were my 2 favorite running backs in the class. Followed closely by Jalen Wright. But I think at this point, Audric Estime's availability, his cost just went up the last couple weeks because he started getting some carries. And Javonte Williams, who had been terrible for a few weeks, albeit in absolutely horrendous matchups, he got 1 carry on Sunday against the Titans. That's not good.
Yeah, against the Chiefs. Yeah, so man,
oh, right.
Yeah, that's crazy to see. And the early reports were that Estime was going to get more workload, but to see it go 14 Estime to 1 carry for Javonte Williams, that's crazy. As far as receiving wise, that's 2 catches for Javonte Williams on 2 targets for 6 yards. So the usage is just cratered. He has 7 total yards in that game. So that's crazy. I put Estime on the block after the game yesterday once I saw that it wasn't just coach speak that Estime was going to get more of the workload. And preseason, I was high as well on Audric Estime. I even put out a video where I saw that I believe of the last 10 years, Audric Estime on PFF rush grades, he was one of the top 5 running backs in rushing. He had like a 98 score on there or something like that. So it was, kind of his value cratered because he was a super slow at the combine. And so everyone, a lot of people were kind of out. Then he has the early injury this season, but now he's back and it looks like the best guy for them. And he's always operated really well as a goal line back. So I like his potential upside as this offense grows, especially into 2025 when they add more weapons.
Yeah, and the thing about Estime is that we watched him in game action at Notre Dame, and he looked fine. And then he goes to the combine and runs a slow time, and everybody kind of like got out on him. It was very similar to Kyron Williams a couple years ago, coming out of the same school, Notre Dame. And then also Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving had probably the worst combine of any running back in the class and absolutely created his value. And, the funny thing is that pre-NFL draft or pre-combine, really, we kind of, especially guys who are more on the analytics side. Now, tape grinders may be a little bit different, but analytics guys who are reading charts and efficiency measures and things like that, we can see a guy like Braylon Allen or Audric Estime or Bucky Irving coming. And so they're high up on our lists. And then something happens around the combine. People like overvalue combine stats. Like if you were to like leave the names off and just look at combine stats and tell somebody Deneric Prince and Isaac Garendo are going to have a better career than Audric Estime and Braylon Allen, 9 people out of 10 are going to look at their combine numbers and go, yeah, you're probably right. Right. That's not reality, though. So all of a sudden you get this narrative. The fantasy space explodes with dropping Braylon Allen down expert boards, dropping out Audric Estime down expert boards. And then what happens? Beginning of the season, Braylon Allen gets a job out of camp and is getting some run. Audric Estime comes back from injury in a very crowded backfield. Excuse me. I think you gave me what you have. Estime comes into a very, very crowded backfield and the cream rises to the top. Bucky Irving shows some efficiency that you wouldn't expect from his numbers. And so if you have a pre-combine take, stick with it, because then you might find value in it, especially if the narrative shifts to everybody dropping them down their boards. If you're in Dynasty with like some guys who think they know what they're doing and they all start posting articles like, oh yeah, Audric Estime, probably 7th in the class, whatever, then go make those trades, especially in April.
Yeah, man. And I just shared that PFF stat with you if you want to share that with the folks. But somehow Javonte is actually right ahead of Audric Estime and PFF run grade from college in the past 10 years, which is kind of crazy that he's taken over. But I did have this question preseason: will Blake Corum or Audric Estime be as good as the other 3? And I think we might have the answer, that he has at least surpassed Javonte Williams.
Yeah. And Corum started getting some play last night. It's going to take a Kyron injury this year if he wants to get into it this year. But but hold on to those Corum and Estime shares. And in fact, especially in Dynasty, go try and get them. All right. We got a trade question. Will you trade Darnold and Garrett Wilson? Is that the Browns defense or just Tillman on the Browns?
Just Tillman. We'll roll with that.
For Jane Daniels, Adams, and Marvin Harrison Jr. All right. If you're a contender, no. I feel like this season, Garrett Wilson and Tillman and Darnold are gonna help you a little bit more. If you are if you're going into rebuild mode right now, absolutely, I do that in a heartbeat. Adams is an expiring asset, and he hasn't looked great. So I hold on to Garrett Wilson. He's the NFL target leader, and Tillman is starting to show out. So what are you?
Yeah, Jason, I'm gambling and I'm taking the Jaden Daniels side. I'm
Okay.
give me Daniels, Harrison. First of all, the Cardinals' offense's team is looking a little bit better. They're going to go into a bye, hopefully learn a little bit more. And a lot of times we see rookies take a step forward after the bye week. So I'm going to disagree with you here. I think Harrison actually has a better rest of season ahead of him. That's not a hot take. I just think that's right there to be had. And Jaden Daniels is just, potentially quarterback one status.
Sure. Maybe I'm just a little bit better over getting burned this week by Jaden Daniels.
I saw a trade that was really rough the other day where, it was yesterday actually. Someone gave Tillman and a second to go acquire Xavier Worthy. There, I would actually have kept Tillman in the second. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely.
I think Tillman's still a little bit underrated, especially with the bye week. It's just like out of sight, out of mind.
And so I don't know who I got into this with, what show it was, but we were talking about fourth rounders and fourth round value. And I went back through my home league and I read off the fourth rounders from the last couple of years. And I mean, it's littered with NFL regulars, with contributors. And so even like as deep as fourth round, people tend to scoff at fourth rounders. I stack them up because I know I'm finding huge values in the fourth round. So a second rounder, that's even better.
Yeah.
All right. And maybe can get them for a decent place in the draft, though. I'm okay with people undervaluing. Yes, absolutely. I want everybody that I like to be undervalued. And a lot of times that happens because if there's anything I can be counted on for, it's data-driven, unhinged bullshit. And so I tend to stick to my takes, and I'm either really wrong or really right.
Can you help me with one? I did a trade right before the show.
Okay.
And I'm feeling very nervous about it. And you were just talking about the fourth, and I should have gotten a fourth at least. I think added. I gave up Justin Fields in a second round pick in 2027 for Geno Smith in a 2025 fifth round pick.
Love it.
I was thinking maybe I should have got a fourth instead of a fifth.
I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure that if you take Geno Smith next season and package him with that 20, well, take somebody with the 25th or with the 25 fifth, and you take that guy and Geno Smith, package him, you're getting somebody better, and that you're getting a 26th seventh. You know what I mean? Or whatever 27 pick you said, you're going to get that back.
Yeah,
so,
I gave up the 27 second rounder. Like second. I know I can get that pick eventually. What's up, Grindberg? Hey, Grindberg in the chat. What's up, man? That guy's a badass.
Hey, and
yeah, I'm in first place in that league. There
it is.
Or tied for first.
Hello.
So yeah.
Hello, Mike. All right, let's get back to the Audric Estime. All right, let's do just like a quick speed round. I'm going to give you some trades, and you tell me which side you're on. Audric Estime, Will Levis.
Wow.
I was going to say, did you just mute yourself?
I think I need to go.
How is that not a?
I don't know, man, because it's just sometimes you're desperate at quarterback, but I think you go estimate. Sure. It looks like he has a spot to be the running back one here. Like, basically, we're at the beginning of potential estimate RB1 season, for fantasy RB2 season, but for him on the team, RB1 season. So I'll go estimate there. I'll admit something I hate to admit, but I did drop Will Levis because it would just look horrible at the beginning. He looks okay right now.
Does he?
No, but he's playing right. The problem, it's just like the Daniel Jones situation. Is like he is currently the human person that is starting for that team. But next season for Dynasty, I think it could easily be nobody wants Levis and people want Estime. So
Well, one thing about Levis is that he was not a Brian Callahan draft pick.
yeah,
So Brian Callahan has zero investment in Will Levis, which means that the Tennessee Titans with a top 5 pick next year are getting a quarterback.
they were forced to bench Mason Rudolph probably.
Maybe,
Because he was
you know,
playing
you
decent.
still have Levis on that rookie contract, and Mason Rudolph is on a free agent contract. So, unless was he traded or signed by the Titans?
Yeah, I don't know, but they got their win under him, under Mason Rudolph. So it's clearly not about winning. You know how the front office would get in there and
Yeah. And a lot of time that's based on contracts, and
yeah.
the GM doesn't want to look bad on paying a free agent. That's, what happened to Gardner Minshew. So,
True.
but basically this is something that I saw coming with the Broncos and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was not acquired by Sean Payton. Sean Payton had zero interest in retaining. Sean Payton wanted his own guy, and I'm pretty sure Brian Callahan next year is going to do the same. So
it's a free agent deal for Mason Rudolph. I just double check.
Okay, so surprisingly, the GM is not sticking with Rudolph or pushing for him, and maybe he is. Maybe they're battling, head to head, whatever. All right, so the next couple that I'm going to do, nice speed round too. We're really flying through it. So the next few that I do, give me your instant reaction: rebuild versus contender. All right. And some of them will be obvious. Like this next one is 2025 third Audric Estime.
Give me Audric Estime.
Okay.
Both.
This one's Audric Estime for a 25 second.
Second. I think you're going to get crushed with some running backs next year.
Audric Estime, Xavier Worthy.
Worthy.
For both?
Yes, because of I think I can flip him in both. Worthy's still holding that value.
That's a good point. I was thinking in terms of like future production, and I like Xavier Worthy, especially after next year or getting into next year when Rashee Rice comes back. DeAndre Hopkins will still be with the team. I've always maintained from the beginning that Xavier Worthy is a best ball guy, not a reliable week-to-week fantasy asset, but his value hasn't dropped yet. So I didn't consider his value. I just considered his production, which
we can stick with that. Let's keep rolling.
That's my problem sometimes. Audric Estime, Kareem Hunt.
Estime.
Yeah.
Isaiah Pacheco's back.
Pacheco's back. All right. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or at least the third guy on the thumbnail, and that's your boy, Mr. Trey, Sir Lance.
Let's go.
What are we doing with Trey Lance going forward? The things that Jerry Jones was saying about Dak Prescott were not exactly great.
Yeah, so Trey Lance, he's not going to be the starter for the Cowboys at any point in 2025. But this year, I think he'll get some run. And I think if you take anything away from the preseason, he's going to throw a lot of interceptions, but he's going to run the ball a lot too. And we had the worst run game, so it's not like they can't look for some improvement there and have him be a part of it.
You sure about that? You're worse than the Cowboys run game is worse than the Raiders run game?
32nd in the league. So,
jeez, okay. Sorry about that.
53 yards from Dowdle last week, which is fine, but only 12 attempts for him, 6 for Zeke. Lance actually had 3 for 17 yards, but he looked good as a runner earlier in this preseason. Like, we know he's got that skill set, but ultimately it just comes down to Cooper Rush, 13 completions, 45 yards passing. 2 fumbles. So why not try to see what you spent your 4th round pick on, knowing that Trey Lance is also due for a contract extension at some point or cut. You got to, if of all times, does it make sense to have Trey Lance on your team? It's now when Dak Prescott's injured. So you just got to see what you got. All you're trying to do is get some kind of leverage so you can get value for Lance later. Dak is signed to this crazy contract. So he's not going to be the Cowboys 2025 starter, but this is an audition for Lance, and the Cowboys could get something for him. I was picking up Lance everywhere once Dak went down, and it literally teed up perfectly so fast for him to get a chance to start. And on our show for Undroppables, my bold prediction was Trey Lance is starting next week and the rest of the season. So starting Monday versus the Texans.
Yeah, and last week, anybody that watched the Friday Player Profiler Today show with me and Chev, I said I just picked up Trey Lance, and we were talking about that. Are you trading a 2026 third for Trey Lance?
Yeah, fine. Ugh.
Are you trading a 2025 third for Trey Lance?
No, I mean, dang it. I think you just have to. I think, guys, you just have to gamble on it. Like, why not? The problem with this next class is it's like kind of setting up perfectly for what you want for these to have a lot of shots at running back. It's a tough spot, but I think I would just do it to gamble. Hate me if you want.
I like this one. Trey Lance for Pat Freiermuth, straight up.
Well, yeah, I think I want Freiermuth.
Trey Lance for Malik Willis, straight up.
Well, yeah, okay. I think Willis may get a backup opportunity next year. He's definitely going to get another contract, but he's not going to be a starter.
I feel like Trey Lance for Malik Willis is the two Spider-Men pointing at each other.
Yeah, basically, guys, I'm seeing Lance as a 2024 starter. He's likely going to get a backup contract next year unless the teams get really desperate. He just hasn't shown enough to be secure at the ball because Lance also in this game in only 6 attempts, he threw an interception. The punter actually had a better passer rating than him.
That's unhinged. What do you think of Jerry Jones trying to clarify to reporters that they played better with Cooper Rush than with Dak?
Jerry Jones is crazy. Yeah, it is. It doesn't make any sense. There's no way to justify it. And he's also arguing with CeeDee Lamb on the curtains. He's like, well, because CeeDee Lamb guys dropped the ball or didn't see a ball coming because the sunlight was directly in his face. And you look at the replay, CeeDee Lamb had no idea what was even happening because the sun was all in his face. And then after Lamb's like, we should put up the curtains so we can see. But Jerry Jones' response is, what do you want me to do? Rebuild the whole new stadium? Like, nobody said that. Just close the blinds that already have the ability to be closed.
We got your hottest Cowboys takes on this show, you guys. But let's play the ad.
Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add Superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from Player Profiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side, prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it.
Thank you, Matthew. All right. Excuse me. So let's get into some of the trades that have been flying around in the fantasy space. Number one traded guy in the last 30 days has been D-Hop. What's your take on D-Hop for rebuild or for contender?
Yeah, you got to trade him away on a rebuilder. And for a contender, I'm interested. We've got Pacheco returning, but no receivers are returning from injury. So it's still going to be all Hopkins and Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce. Thankfully we got Kelce back due to all the carnage. But yeah, I'm good with Hopkins. Give me Hopkins for third. I think once you get into the second round price range, there's other guys you can look at. Like I just got a deal done for late second. Like the targets are through the roof. I want more voluminous pass volume type of team if I'm going to start getting to the second round range. But yeah, third round pick, early third, I'm good with that for Hopkins.
Unloading Hopkins and Connor for a 25 first rounder on a rebuild.
Yes. Yeah, you would do that. And I can't remember. I think we had. Anyway, yeah, I would definitely do that for sure. Connor's another guy that I'm.
That's a beautiful trade on both sides.
Yeah. Hopefully we talk about Connor's backup pretty soon.
I was gonna get into Trey Benson because I was gonna let's
yeah no I didn't say the name. I was trying to save it. Yeah.
let's get into that in a second. All right. The second most traded guy in the last 30 days has been Cooper Rush. But let's talk about the third most traded player.
All right, real quick. I traded Cooper Rush for a 4th round pick 2 days ago. I did do something right. Picked him up with Fab and then trade him instantly.
Yep. And he went for a 4th today. He was packaged with T. Higgins, 2 seconds for Jordan Love. Straight up for Tyler Boyd. I love that one. Because that's just like nobody wins or loses.
Yeah.
All right. So the third most
fantasy points league. Nice. All right, go ahead.
No, sorry. The third most traded player in the last 30 days, who I just, along with, let me get that back. Greinberg and I have a team together, and what's that?
No, nothing.
Oh, and we just made a trade for Chris Olave. It went through last night. We traded. We're in a rebuild mode. We drafted Dak and Jalen Hurts. A couple other guys, Tyreek, Devontae. Nice. We just traded Olave for Tyreek.
Straight up. Good work.
I love it. Like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Just like with Tyreek's teammate, the concussions are serious. So, like with Tua recurring, we saw the recurring concussion meant that maybe you sit out for long stints of time. And with Olave, I think I think 3 concussions within like a 5-week span or something like that. He might be out for the rest of the season. They said he was looking at a third independent neurologist to just check his mental. I'm not expecting any sort of retirement or anything like that. But, even though Olave is very young, we weren't getting what we wanted from him anyway. So on a contender, I might as well take the shot on Tyreek while you can still buy low. And yeah, Tyreek's not giving us what we really wanted, but he's back. He's healthy. Unfortunately, playing through that wrist injury that he's going to have to play through all the rest of the season, a torn ligament in his wrist, which is also serious. But you can't beat speed, so I'll take that shot.
My favorite tweet yesterday was the one that had a chart of all of the Dolphins games this year, and it said week 1, 100 yards receiving and a touchdown. Week 1, arrested, and then it's or arrested, not arrested. 100 yards, yes. Touchdown, yes. And then all the other weeks, arrested, no. 100 yards, no. Touchdown, no. That was pretty good. So we got Chris Olave for Tyreek. Somebody paid Chris Olave and a second rounder for Tyreek. So I feel like we got pretty good value on giving up Tyreek. Somebody paid Chris Olave and Ramondre. Other than that, there's a lot of like straight up Tyreek and Olave trades.
Yeah, it makes sense why people are doing it. You're trying to win. You need a body. Olave will be there later. I can't remember the Rashid Shaheed injury. I expect these Saints got to add somebody though. We were happy that they got Rashid Shaheed in there. They already knew that what caliber of player he was in the building. But at the same time, with these two injuries, I expect them to add a receiver next year. Still, Lavi should be that main guy. He's a really good route runner. Just gotta hope he doesn't take these crazy hits.
Yeah, and a lot of that is not necessarily his fault. And I'm not saying it's Derek Carr's fault either, because Derek Carr has been pretty good about not throwing hospital balls. But there have just been a couple of like very, very unfortunate passes that Chris Olave has gotten himself into. That happens when, you're dealing with, 6 foot, 220 pound safeties and you're going over the middle. So that Miami passing game, we're looking at Tyreek Hill, who's an expiring asset, and then Jalen Waddle has like caused some controversy over the last couple of weeks because he hasn't done anything. Tyreek hadn't been doing anything. Waddle didn't have a terrible game last night, but I feel like that's about what we can expect from Waddle. 5 catches, 50 yards, hope for a touchdown. He hasn't really done much more than that, even though his talent exceeds that. And I did some digging. We were talking about him in another show, or even last week on this show, and I did some digging on Spot Track, and he's got a huge contract that he's not a free agent for a long time. So apparently the Dolphins have long-term plans for him, but what do you expect from Waddle? Is he a guy that, like, I mean, a couple of years ago he was an every week starter. This year he's in a lot of start-sit questions.
I feel good about Waddle in the distant future when he's not paired with Tyreek Hill. It's hard to see him in a situation where he has no other competition ever again, like in that year, his rookie year, where he was getting all those targets. But at the same time, there's just not as many elite players that could ever just pop back up and replace Tyreek Hill. So he's not really going to ever find himself in that situation with another Tyreek Hill on the other side of him. Once Tyreek Hill's gone, I know Tyreek had hinted at retirement. It maybe it doesn't come this next year. Okay. But I think if you say that, then it's got to be in 2 years from now, because 2 years from now is actually a year beyond when he said he was going to retire. So I know he reworked that contract, but if Waddle gets back in that spot, great. So then it just becomes down to, do you believe someone's still going to have the juice in their legs at that point in time when they're more of a speed-based player in Waddle?
Right.
So if you think Waddle still has that in him when he is in the 28-year-old range, then there you go.
But that's another 2 years of him dealing with nagging injuries, and I just like I would have put him this year in like tier 3. So he would have been in like 24 to 36. I wouldn't have expected him to like be a wide receiver 1 or 2 in any of my lineups, but at least a flex spot. I think I'd even drop him down a tier until such time as maybe he's the lead receiver in an offense. But do we see that happening? Do you think he could lead a wide receiver room? He's not Jamar Chase, George Pickens, Justin Jefferson, like how I threw Pickens in there.
I don't think so. I don't think he will, but if you go to the Chiefs or whatever, the right spot, it can be fine. So no, I don't think he's in that spot. But there are quarterbacks that can support 2 wide receivers. We've seen it.
Sure.
We've got the Burrow. We get, his own quarterback at one point in time could do it.
Kirk Cousins.
Concussions are too volatile. Kirk Cousins has historically done that. So there's guys that can support 2 receivers. It's got to be a high volume offense. Like if he went with Baker Mayfield, I think even Geno Smith maybe throws it a lot. But yeah, it's a tough spot. His value is probably higher than his production right now, so it's hard to get the right deal.
So if his value is higher than his production, then that's a great sell moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
tough. Let's see what he's trading for.
All right, so let's get to the guy that you wanted to talk about. We got a situation with a two-headed monster in the Arizona Cardinals backfield, and well,
Oh
three-headed
yeah,
because
there we go.
we got to talk about Kyler Murray too. But
Woo.
everybody was huge on the Braylon Allen hype train because he was working as a high-value RB2 in that Jets offense. He's kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. But excuse me, the guy who's absolutely gotten some run as a solid RB2 is Trey Benson. Somebody that I love, that I have in my home league, that I've like waived off offers for all season. I stocked up heavy on this class of running backs just because I like them and feel that there's a lot of guys that they can take over everyday jobs like Trey Benson, Jalen Wright, and Audric Estime and Blake Corum. So what are we doing with Trey Benson, or how are we targeting him right now? Because on Fantasy Sports Advice Network, just released today in our waiver wire show, I said pick up Trey Benson, as well as Mike had him last week. So now's the time to go grab him. What are you doing?
Yeah, now's the time to go grab him. Is right. Basically, the last month, all my waiver wire shows have been get these rookies because something's going to shift. We don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but historically, after the bye weeks, teams will a lot of times just decide to make a switch. Now, Connor's been too good. He's actually number one in the NFL in broken tackles. He's playing well.
Yeah.
But this past week, 62 yards rushing for Benson to 33 for Connor. Similar number of attempts, 2 more attempts for Connor, actually. But it's just a young man's game, the running back position. And now that the Cardinals are number one in their division, maybe later in the season, especially if they get into a comfortable spot, they may want to lean on Benson anyway to keep Connor fresh. Connor hasn't missed a game yet, which he's never gone a season without missing a game. So that game is coming statistically. So got to get Benson for now and for later. It's just the reason they drafted him, and I think he'll do well in that role.
Perfect question. All right. Harambe's coming in with a perfect question.
Nice.
As it relates to this, because
up,
of what my eyes are trained on right now. All right. I have a tight end question moving forward. I have Jake Ferguson, but I'm not comfortable moving forward. I also have Jonnu Smith. Would you roll with Smith or wait and see with Fergie? Ertz, Muth, Disley, and Schultz available on waivers. So I feel like Ertz is the only 100% viable guy out of those four. So if you wanted to do this, you'd be picking up Ertz. But I'm staring right down the barrel of this trade that went through today, and it was Trey Benson straight up for Jake Ferguson. You are the Cowboys fan. You watch Jake Ferguson more than just about anybody. I am also high on Jake Ferguson, but I feel like Trey Benson would be a perfect target.
Yeah, I would make that move. Ultimately, and I was looking at a roster earlier today, and I just remembered, why does my team look the way it does? It's because I spent a lot of time in offseason focused on my roster construction, and I only have 2 tight ends on a lot of my teams. I've got a Brock Bowers on a lot of my teams, and like Evan Ingram is my backup, or a Ferguson or somebody like that, fine. But I don't generally care to add too many more of these guys. Ertz, who's available on your waiver wires, had 8 targets this past game. Yeah, he didn't bring them all in. Yeah, he's got no yards after catch ability at all whatsoever. But any given Sunday, one of those guys could outscore Ferguson, especially if Trey Lance is going to be starting, especially if Cooper Rush is going to be starting, because it's not going to be Dak. And I see the name Schultz in here, and it reminds me of when Schultz was on the Cowboys. And we thought he was going to get a contract extension, and it just didn't come. They moved on to the next. And guess what? The Cowboys spent a 2nd-round pick on Luke Schoonmaker. They're going to give that guy some run. He had a 6-for-6 game earlier this season. So I don't think it's a guarantee that Ferguson's going to be a starter on the Dallas Cowboys and get featured as the number 2 target on his team going forward. Now, this sounds like a redraft question. Maybe it's not. But point is, I'm taking Benson all day. I don't, no matter what in this spot. I think he's not even asking about Benson. That was just you. But
right. No, because
yeah.
he asked a question about Ferguson right as I was about to talk about Trey Benson straight up for Ferguson.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, Benson, you got to make that move. Ferguson definitely has some value as a tight end 1 for a while, sure, and even next season and all that. But yeah, give me Benson, because it's just the whole point of me bringing to my roster construction is I left a lot of room to stash these Blake Corums and all of these backup running backs, these Trey Bensons. This is what we wanted. You didn't want to have to pay for a bunch of top end running backs. Like, yeah, I've got my anchor guy, but this is when you want a Trey Benson to pop off.
Right. And Harambe checks in with it is redraft. So I will say, Harambe, that you say that you're 8-2 and weak spot is tight end. In redraft, you want your weak spot to be tight end because you can outscore a starting. If you draft a tight end, especially in the first 8 rounds, you can play the waiver wire and go match up streaming with tight ends and outscore somebody who's going to be, a top 10 tight end. So let's rewind a little bit, because obviously I'm doing Trey Benson for Jake Ferguson in Dynasty, especially if I have Jonnu Smith, because we didn't even get to that part. I love Jonnu Smith.
Bro, did you see
had high
that
hopes for him.
You see that one play from Jonnu last night? Dude looked explosive, right?
He is, and
we saw the goal line.
We saw glimpses of it last year, and this was the first year that he was coming into a system where he wasn't going to be sharing the tight end duties with anybody else. He shared tight end duties in Tennessee. He shared them in Atlanta, and both of those were with Arthur Smith offenses. Now he's in a Mike McDaniel offense where the system that made George Kittle is in place. The Dolphins until this year hadn't traditionally been going to their tight end, but they hadn't had a tight end like Jonnu Smith, right? I love Jonnu Smith going forward. So I do that trade in Dynasty and I target Benson, but in redraft, I'm looking for more than Benson. And I think that in redraft, you can find somebody more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I
People are
just
hurting
addressed that. I love Jonnu Smith, especially rest of the season. It took him 3 or 4 weeks to kind of get acclimated in this offense, but I think he's got it down to his back and he's targeting him. So Jonnu Smith was like a preseason favorite of mine, and he's starting to pay off.
Yeah, the reason I was actually thinking about all that about my roster earlier is it actually was looking at John. I was looking at some waivers. I'm like, oh, should I pick him up? Because I did like how lean Jonnu looks and athletic and all that. He's averaging 8 points a game since to his return, which isn't a lot. And that's why I was kind of like, yeah, I got Bowers. I don't need him. But for you, like, you'll take 8 points a game from a tight end. And there's upside for more, to be honest. But point is, we'll take those 8 points for sure.
And last thing from Harambe, gonna hold and roll with Jonnu. Roll with Jonnu, but make that trade. Trade Ferguson, because you're going to be able to get somebody to help you down the stretch. You're going to want to look for good late season matchups, especially week 16 and 17, and go try and find somebody who's kind of a wide receiver 2 or 3, a running back 2 that has really good matchups for the playoffs, and dangle Ferguson, see what you can get.
Yeah.
All right.
Go win, Harambe.
Let's get out of here and give everybody a homework assignment. All right. So what I want to see is, if you're watching right now, I want you to take your dynasty rosters, and we are entering week 11. We are in this is when we start looking at the contenders in our leagues, if they're not us, and start targeting those draft picks. You're going to want to get like the guys who are in playoff spot 5 and 6, obviously not 1, because they're going to be incentivized to make trades because they want to move up in the playoff potentiality. Also, their draft picks are going to be better than guys who are in the 1 and 2 spots, right? So a homework assignment for everybody who's watching today, and then also for DFK and me, and we'll report back next week, Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. Make a trade in your Dynasty League, whether it's a contender or a rebuild, and see what you can do. I'm going to start today, and I'm going to go through all of my Dynasty teams and start sending out trade offers. Today is my day to do that. So I will report back. You guys do the same thing. Let's see the comments light up next week and see what you guys can do. I have Bucky and Tyrone Tracy for playoff weeks. Sure, that I like that. I would want to get something to enhance that just because of Rashad White. And Tyrone Tracy should be okay. I don't think Devin Singletary is going to do anything, but I think you're going to want to look for what running back you can get for Jake Ferguson. And then do you have a YouTube channel? I have lots of them. If you're near a computer right now, go to dot period. Oh, you're gold. So now you're looking for a wide receiver. All right. dot period cards / big boned FFB, BIGBONEDED FFB. It'll give you all of the channels that I'm on. It'll give you my Twitter, all that stuff. So I'm on Player Profiler News, Undroppables, Fantasy Sports Advice Network, Fantasy Football Plus, and dot cards. Big boned FFB will have all that. And hey, if you get over to the Undroppables, you'll see Dynasty F Key there too with his Cowboys show. And there's a lot of great content. Jax Falcone, Chalk is the leader. We got a bunch of sharps over there.
And
Mike Greinberg too.
Make sure to follow Player Profiler News and Player Profiler main channel also.
Yes. Go to on YouTube, go to Player Profiler, go to Player Profiler News. On Twitter, it's Player Profiler _NFL. And our archive of our hardworking news desk is at playerprofiler.com/news. All right, let's get out of here. We will see you next week in the morning on my side, in the afternoon on y'all's side. And we hope you win. Oh, Dynasty Rehab checking in.
Yes, sir. What's up, Dynasty Rehab? I appreciate everybody for checking us out. Good luck this week. Y'all got this. Let's win.
Let's go.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.
To the moon.